you don't want to see this.
15 minutes.
Um,
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. So, um, and again, you may have a lot of space, you may not. I remember, it's crazy. I was thinking about this the other day. I used to live to watch this show. And I mean, look, these people were out of this world, like extreme thought processes. But we used to watch that show. And do you remember it, Batavia, Doomsday Preppers?
I never watched it.
You never watched that show?
I'm much more into the series, like the dramatization
Mm-hmm.
and the and movies around Doomsday. Not I rarely watch any real people, ironically enough.
Yeah.
But
So these people, it was on like National Geographic or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks. We'll collect our check after this. But they would prepare for whatever scenario they wanted. And
Yeah.
I mean, dude, it was like some guy, I remember one guy, he owned a castle, like a half finished castle. And he
Uh-huh.
had like a family of like, I don't know, like 6 or something. And they would run, and I'm sure a lot of this was like over dramatized for TV, but they would run like scenarios. I think they were prepping for EMP blasts. And so they were all like, yeah, we got our bows and arrows and our katana swords and like all this stuff, Like I said, it was crazy. But within that same breath, there was a person, and they were in California, and they wanted, for whatever reason, I don't remember the reason, but they wanted to grow their own food. And they had a very small piece of land. And so they took this small piece of land. And when I say intensively planted, this is like the definition times 10 of the, intensively planted. I mean, vertical gardening, upside down gardening, sideways. What is spacing? What does that even mean? I'm sure they had things spaced out, but it was so meticulously planned that in this small garden, in this small yard, they had everything they wanted to produce. And it was impressive. And I was like right around the time where I was really just starting to kick into my gardening experience and just really get going. And I remember looking at that and being like, wow, this is next level. Like, this is something to think about. And, I took that as like, oh, I don't worry about spacing. I'm just going to plant as much as I can. And, here we are today where I'm still having this conversation years later. But they took that small land and transformed it into something insane. And they lived off of their small quarter acre, maybe, which really, when you get into quarter acreage, when you look at a house to buy, it's labeled in square footage. It's not really labeled in acreage anymore. So you look at that and you say, there's a lot there, but I don't want that to be the narrative of us saying, you need to take your small piece of land and just grow nothing but food on it so you can see nothing else. That's not really what we want to talk about here, because I don't think that's realistic. I think if you can plant a small garden and you needed to, you could plant a big garden anytime, right? But
Yeah.
if you have, I mean, how big is your property? Do you know?
It's 25 by 125.
Okay, so y'all do the math on that. I'm not going to do it. But if you take that and you say, well, I want to have a big garden, but you still want to have a little patch of grass to enjoy or something, right? I mean, there's no need to have it completely like packed in there. So, how can we meet that goal with still enjoying like a normal person? And when I say normal person, I mean non EMP in a castle with katana blades and stuff, just a normal day-to-day life, but growing the maximum amount of food out of your garden bed.
Oh, that's the first time you've introduced the maximum.
Yeah.
That's you definitely speak in those terms. And I I think in those terms. I don't say it out loud only because I don't want to, how should I say this? I feel like as soon as I say that out loud, then I limit myself with the other things that I want to do. Right. Like that's again, that's a me thing. That's a me issue.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about flowers more, in large part because I believe they will absolutely bring me more joy in the garden space. And a few years back, I had a pause around that because investing in more flowers would mean that basically it's like I'm trading one for the other. And I've since matured from that viewpoint and saying, well, no, like if I'm doing this, like my life depends on it, these other things are important to me as well. Flowers, like quite literally, I am on the in the market for a smaller gas grill because the one that I have now, the footprint is very large and it's not very convenient for me to kind of have it's in the garage right now. Have it outside, right? Kind of an eyesore as well as that. But think about something as simple as that when it comes to being able to enjoy all this fresh produce that's coming out of the garden.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who doesn't love like putting some, what zucchini? Did somebody say zucchini on the grill? Yeah,
I just cooked asparagus on the grill last night. It was amazing.
yeah, man.
Yeah. um, yeah, maximum is definitely a term that I've learned that I am the only person in the world that says that about a garden. The reason why I say is because I used to label YouTube videos like maximize and max, and like nobody used those terms, so I walked away from it. But it is true because you know most people are like, "Hey, I can't get enough. I can't grow enough."
Mm,
Last
mm.
year I had a guy, a friend of mine. He built me a surfboard, and we were talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I got a garden. I got just and it was funny. And I hope you're not listening to this, Sean, but if you are, my bad, dude. He was like, I it's not very big. That was like the first thing he
Mhm.
started off with. And I was like, dude, it doesn't have to be big. It's like, I was like, are you happy with what you're growing out of it? He's like, oh, yeah. I mean, I get, I put a tomato plant in there. I do a little bit of cucumbers and a pepper. And he's like, I get enough to make salads and stuff. And I'm like, cool, man. I was like, that's awesome, bro. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'd like to get more, but I don't have the space. And I said, well, you're talking to the right guy. I said, look, you get my surfboard ready a week earlier, we'll do it. So we got him going. I went, I looked, and I said, yeah, he had, it was one of those things where it was like your front porch and you had a box off the front porch.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nothing crazy, but I was like, in this box, we can grow a lot more food out of this box. We just have to get creative about it. And so, the thought process was a lot of it was just like early, like summer garden. There was no multi season anything, no understanding of it. Yeah, go ahead and go ahead.
No, I was just dinging the
I
moment.
know. Go
Like
ahead and do
that's
it
yeah.
again because it doesn't ding right.
It doesn't.
There we go. It's like a long drawn out ding. But there was no multi season, and then the other issue that I saw was the hang up on certain vegetables. And that hang up was like a tomato, right? Well, I
Yeah,
got to get as many
yeah.
tomatoes. And I said, man, what are you going to do with them tomatoes? Because he wasn't canning or anything. I was like, what are you going to do?
Mhm.
He's like, man, I just love growing them. I'm like, I get it, but we can do
Mhm.
more. So, we went in and we structured. He grew a little bit more peppers, one less tomato. So, one less tomato led to four more pepper plants.
Come on, somebody. Wait.
Yeah.
I just
Ding.
No, no, I just realized that that almost sounds anti-tomato. That's not who I
But
am.
that's not anti tomato.
But no, it's not anti-tomato. My point is that who would have ever thunk that I'd be here talking about pull out a tomato plant for something else? But that's exactly it. It's the pound for pound, you know, not even pound for pound. Let me take that back. The diversity of what you're growing. That's the piece that I think you and I even have lost track of in our discussions on air. So, as a part of the pod, as I think about the three seasons that I'm trying to garden in, I think about the different types of things that I could be growing. It's not, even if I don't compare like full amount of pounds of food, like the benefit is that I could have 20 different vegetables coming out of my garden. I just made that number up. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but 20 different vegetables coming out of my garden across the season. Now I'm talking. Now
Yeah.
we're talking.
Well,
I don't know. That's the part that I'm signing up for,
so my first question is, what is the pod?
as in the podcast.
Okay. I was just making sure.
Mm.
But
So
also,
everyone
you didn't let me
shrugging their shoulder.
finish. So we took the tomato and we changed it to a cherry
Wait a
tomato.
minute. No, I didn't let you finish. I gave you the ding, and then you insisted that I talk, so I
Oh,
started talking.
it's all
Uh,
good. We'll
uh,
have this
uh,
argument later.
no, 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 I'm done. I won.
So we
Don't
took,
force me out on the stage and then say I wasn't done with my
yeah.
solo.
So we took the tomato and we put a cherry tomato in its place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and why did we do that? Well, he said he liked the salads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we took that cherry tomato and we made it a cherry tomato, all of a sudden he got more tomatoes than he could even eat off of one plant. Could not keep
Yeah,
up with it. So
yeah.
you can see in that little area, we did 3 different techniques that instantly changed that space
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
forever, and so we'll have
Mm-hmm.
to reevaluate and do it again and go through. But as you do this, you can see that this is how this happens. So there's a lot of different ways to do it.